back to this sacred space. My name is Kalu and I'm also known as the Scribe Priestess. And on this channel, I make videos about spiritual practices, spiritual development, and anything that has to do with our spiritual journey here on earth. And in today's video, we are talking about a spiritual practice that is very dear to my heart and my soul, and that I believe is one of the most relatable spiritual practice of them all. It doesn't matter where in the world you are, which culture, it doesn't matter. This one is going to really resonate with every single human being on earth. So grab something to drink so we can start this beautiful practice of today, which is singing. Let's go. So as always, you guys, there is going to be an extended version on my webpage about this subject. On this extended version, I am going to be talking a little bit more about the ritual part of singing. Why is that certain dances and certain chants are implemented in rituals? So we're going to go a little bit more into the esoteric and mystical side of this spiritual practice. So if you're curious enough, I am going to leave on the description down below the link to my webpage so you can go and check it out. You need to become a member of our community in order to see this extended version library section. So let's get started with today's video. Today's spiritual practice is chanting, singing, and dancing, which evolves or revolves around music. I believe this one is a very sacred one. It is actually a very special spiritual practice. And I don't know about you guys, but I couldn't see my life without music. So music plays such an important part on my life. I mean, could you actually just picture your life without music? It would be so dull. It would be so sad. Music actually talks to a very deep part of our souls. The beautiful thing about music is that when you are able to connect on a spiritual level with what actually music is, you start to see that everything is interconnected and that actually everything has music inside of it. So let's get started with this. I want to start by actually just explaining a little bit what chants are and how do they differ from singing practices, for example. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the group dynamics that you have in singing practices. Then we're going to be talking a little bit more on this spiritual part of it. What makes a chant and a song a song? We all have the ability to sing. We all have that ability to connect to our inner voice. And actually, it makes me sad that I know a lot of people who have this idea they cannot sing. Maybe it can be a mix of things, you know. Maybe you have some expectation that you want your voice to sound like, and actually your voice is in another range of tonalities than what you expect it to be, or maybe you're not that quite accustomed to sing, so when you hear yourself you go like, what was that? But actually we all can sing. There's the ability to sing and to actually process sound with our bodies has been since a long time ago part of the development of the human species. In its book Science and Spiritual Practices from Rupert Sheldrake, Sheldrake says there and explains very well the evolution of our organs and the ability to sing. So if you want to check that out, I absolutely recommend it. It makes absolutely sense that the more we were able to process, you know, the being able to speak, being able to make those sounds, the more we were able to actually evolve in our human anatomy. It's actually very beautiful to see that some other species of animals, for example, they do the courtship of their partners while doing some sounds, mating sounds that they do You have their birds, for example, or some mammals that the male is going to be making some sounds to attract the female. I was very happy to see that, for example, woodpeckers, they tend to do drumming sounds on the woods that tend to attract the female. So instead of using the singing voice that birds have, they do the picking on the wood, so that they can become these drumming sounds, and that attracts the female. I found that so beautiful, because we tend to take things for granted as humans. We go like that. Birds sing, obviously he's going to sing to attract the female, but no. Actually, there are more ways that the animal attract each other, but they all revolve into sound. And the funny thing and very interesting thing is that it does not only arouse us into mating or into releasing this oxytocin inside of us that creates this arousal for intimacy and pleasure, but it also can arouse feelings of being courageous and wanting to stand up and fill yourself up with feelings such as being brave, being courageous, having the energy to go out and do something. And I found that absolutely amazing, that a sound can do all of that inside of our bodies. As always, I am bringing here a little bit of my cup of tea. And that Sheldrake did not speak about it in the book, but I want to bring something to our consciousness, is that we are 70% of water, right? So there is a huge amount of water inside of us, inside of our bodies. Water is the fastest element in which anything can go through. So normally we would say electricity, but water makes vibration and frequency travel very fast. So if you would want to get vibrations into something, then use the element of water. So it actually makes a lot of sense that we as human beings who have 70% of water inside of us are very moved by music, by sound, by the vibrations and the frequencies that sound is making. There is a lot of anatomy that is intertwined and interconnected with the power of music, the power of sound. There are a lot of other mystical schools that teach the importance of sound and how sound actually activates a lot of initiation journeys inside of your spiritual development journey, because these initiations have to do with this change of frequencies and change of vibrational states, and it revolves around sound. Sound has been something that I found very interesting, that we actually don't know for certain. When did civilizations started to sing? Or when did actually that started? It should have started very early, I believe, because one of the things that it's very interesting to see is that the evolution of how we grow into being a human being is actually, we first encounter our voice, and then we encounter, for example, instruments. So when we are kids, when we are little baby childs, we encounter our voice first, and then we are able to use our hands to make sound, to play instruments, or to make anything touch with each other. But first comes the energy with the voice, with the screaming. The first thing that the baby does as the baby is coming into the world is screaming. So this scream of birth, this scream of life. And it's the same thing with the creation of the universe. The first was the word, or first was the sound. So it's this part of initiation of the creation. It creates itself with sound. There is a very spiritual and mystical component about music. And the thing that I find the most important to be talking about is the power music has to move people, to move groups. of people actually. And I liked a lot that Sheldrake in his book really takes a big portion of this chapter to explain group dynamics. And you can see that through history, and you can see it also in your life, that the more people come together to make an activity such as singing, the more the group is going to become not only more integrated, but the members of the group are going to feel themselves more interconnected with another. A very good way into creating a healthy group dynamic is implementing a sing activity. So to be singing together, it has absolutely amazing benefits to be singing together with other people. It not only affects your emotional state, but it actually makes you want to connect with other people, to actually share, to actually see the other person. And the funny thing about that is that if we would go back to our roots, ancestors used to do that, where they would gather around a fire or maybe just gather themselves in circles and they would sing together. They would sing for the coming of spring, they would sing for the coming of summer, or they would sing for certain specific festivities. The more we would do that, the more we could cultivate these group activities surrounding the chanting practice or the singing practice, the more we could connect to each other. It is a very integrative activity to be doing. The beautiful thing about it is that when you close your eyes and actually just get into the flow of singing, not thinking if you're doing it okay, if you're singing better than the other person, or if you are not singing okay, no. Just actually singing for the pleasure of singing and for the pleasure of connecting with another person, you will start to see a resonance building itself inside of the group. So it's a perfect activity to promote this healthy group dynamic of building trust, building confidence inside of a group. You can see it in any type of group dynamics. You can see choirs of beautiful churches who do this. For example, I am thinking about now in these war chants that the warriors used to have. When soldiers were going to go to wars, there were a lot of cultures that had these war songs that they were singing together and blah 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 blah, and they were going to war because not only that was going to awaken these emotions of bravery, of being courageous, but it actually was also bringing them together because they were moving themselves in unity. One thing that sound has is that the more you start to sing with people together, the more you're going to come in the same frequency and resonance with each other. And that is so amazing. So imagine how powerful singing and chanting can be, that it can actually create a wavelength of frequency capable of uniting groups of people. And I think that we should really think about that a little bit more and maybe implement more about this spiritual practice in our day-to-day life. Myself, since I was very little touched by music. I love music, and I've had a very interesting journey with music. I might tell that one day. But I worked a lot in the music industry when I was living in Guatemala, and I learned a lot. But I was always very afraid of singing. I was always very afraid of showing to everybody my capabilities and what I could do with my voice. And I don't know, I think it had to do a lot with the people I was surrounding myself with, but actually also this environment of taking music into such a high degree that, no, but if I am not like this pro musician, that I cannot do that. If I cannot read music, that I cannot sing, for example. Or comparing yourself in an unhealthy way to other people. And of course, I was younger, and we all have our journeys to go with and to travel. And I had a very special journey with music because I feel that the truth is that when I found myself again and I found my voice again, I started to sing. And as I connected more and more to my voice, I was able to connect more and more with myself. And now I'm on a path of priestesshood of sacred sound. And I can see how beautiful and how important sound is for us, how healing sound can be. There have been civilizations, I can tell about the Egyptians here, that used sacred sound to create not only sacred ceremonies of healing abilities, but also they were really able to heal people with sound. Sound is a very powerful spiritual activity, a spiritual practice that you can be implementing in your life. Here we come to the difference from singing and chanting. Chanting is really done when you are repeating over and over a same word or a same vowel. There are a lot of mantras, for example, very, very well-known ones that you can repeat and repeat and repeat. And the goal of chanting is actually to bring yourself into this state of bliss, of meditation, where you can actually connect to the energy that you are creating with the mantra or with the chant. So before we were talking in the ritual part of the spiritual practices about morphic resonance, and chants have that. Chants go way back to our ancestors when that first chant began, and what you're doing there while you are chanting is connecting with the memory of the chant to the first time that chant was being made. That's why, for example, the is so well known because it's the sound of the universe. So with the when you go like you are connecting yourself with the creation itself. So the idea is to go to the point of the creation of the universe, because it's the sound of the universe, the creation itself. So imagine being able to connect with that powerful energy of immense creative potential that is the mantra. And you have other ones. You have the Ho'oponopono, for example. You have the Om Mani Padme Hum. Amen. That's a very, very beautiful mantra also. And there are a lot of, especially I think I cannot remember now, but in the book you can read about it. From where does the actual word amen comes from, and how they would use it as a mantra. And I find just the word amen, that you can connect with the word amen, what it means to say amen, what it means to say that's the difference between chanting and singing. Of course, when you sing in a religious context or in a spiritual context, you can actually also create a connection with the spiritual world, with God, Goddess, the universe, or with your spiritual guides, for example, with your inner capability to connect yourself with your own spirituality, with your own spirit, with your angels, with your divine essence in yourself. But chants are a more repetitive one and are done, I believe that's my opinion, that chants are far more ritualistic than just the practice of singing. So as I was saying in one portion of the video, the fun part also about singing is that it releases oxytocin inside of our bodies. Oxytocin is a hormone responsible for having desire, for getting this arousal of life. It also gets you get oxytocin when you're falling in love, for example. When a mother gives birth to her child, there is a lot of oxytocin released in there. So how amazing it is that and oxytocin is also released by the pineal gland. That is a very important little point that is going to be very beneficial for us in the future when we talk about the pineal gland. But yes, so chanting and singing, using your voice in this manner, in this vibrational state, actually activates your pineal gland. There is a lot of benefits of singing, having this beautiful spiritual practice. One thing that I want to say here that is actually very important is that sound and music is very interconnected with the laws of the universe, because sound is a vibrational state. That is one of the laws of the universe that we're going to be also seeing here, which is vibration, the law of vibration, that everything is vibrating, everything has a specific frequency to itself. So in my opinion, the way of truth and light and love, which is consciousness itself, God itself, and the universe, everything is vibrating. So everything has a specific vibration and an attunement to it. Imagine that there is a beautiful concept in mysticism, which is the music of the spheres. And that means that every single planet, our Earth, has a sound, has a music to herself, has a specific vibration and a specific frequency to her. Our beautiful sun, he has a music too. He has a specific vibration. We, at this moment, are not able to perceive those vibrational states and frequencies as human beings, but it doesn't mean that because we don't feel it and we don't perceive them as human beings, that they don't exist. They actually do. And in quantum physics, they have done really a lot of research. The sounds that the planets do, because of the elliptical way that the planets move, because they don't move in a circular way. You can check it out. It's very interesting to be able to see that actual science is telling you that yes, the planets have a sound, and that connects itself to this vibrational law of the universe, that everything has a vibration to it. And that connects us in a broader way to everything that is on Earth that is actually vibrating and making music. That means that with a certain frequency, you're also vibrating. You're also vibrating in a specific sound and music. Isn't that amazing? That to me is so beautiful, because you can see the interconnectedness from the very micro to the very macro. So another law of the universe. So this is actually a very important spiritual practice, as I was saying. If I want to give an advice here, and my advice is, guys, try yourselves. Like, doesn't matter if you guys think you sound bad, try to get in touch more and more with your voice, with your ability to create sound, because that is going to bring back a lot of your own abilities, you're going to start reclaiming the power that you have inside of being creators yourselves. Because while using the ability to create sound, you are using all your capabilities you have as a creator. And if you start managing the creation of sound, you're going to start managing the changes in frequency that you can achieve in yourself. That's why I don't know if you have ever done this, you guys, but whoever has done it already, when you go into a very deep meditation with a mantra, you are in a whole other state. It is a trance. It is this flow of life. And that doesn't have to be a religious thing. It can also be just while singing or playing an instrument, you are so inside of the music that you just forget about everything. You are just being inside of the moment, and it's just like you are able to immerse yourself in the creation that it's being made at the moment. It's just amazing. To me, that's one of the most amazing feelings that you can achieve. This feeling of being in complete flow, in absolute flow with everything surrounding yourself, that you are actually able to forget about where you are, who you are, what are you doing, and you're just completely in the moment, surrounded by music and sound. It's one of the most beautiful experiences that I have ever felt. And if you add to that the fact that you can do that outside in nature, I'm telling you. I love to take my instruments out in nature and do sessions in nature with my drums or rattles, my voice also, because it is such a powerful way of reconnecting to everything that surrounds you. And actually, something very interesting is how animals react to music, how you can start seeing how nature and this more than human world actually reacts to music. There is a guy on Instagram that I follow. He takes his guitar and he goes to zoos and everything, and places where animals are, and he just sings to animals, and it's amazing to see the reactions they have. So imagine if that can be the reactions that music have to animals, what is music actually doing to us? And I want to close this by saying, remember the times that you had a lot of struggles in your life. I can remember, I can recount a lot of them. And I remember that music had the power either to bring me down. I mean, like if I was in this very petty, very horrible hole of depression and I would listen to depressive sound, I could just stay there and just rot in this emotion. But if I was able to get myself out of that music and start listening to more uplifting beats, to more uplifting sounds, I was able to get out faster and sooner from this hole that I was in. And that happened to me a lot of times in my life. I will never forget, I was having struggles with my emotional stability, and I had depression, and I was in a very, very low moment in my life. And I stumbled upon an amazing blues from the Appalachian Mountains of the United States. The band is called Raising Appalachia. In that moment, that music just saved me. Their music saved me. And I didn't know why. Their music was so uplifting to me. I'm going to cry again. No. Okay. Their music was so important for me because I remember listening again and again and again and again one song, and just by tuning in this frequency, in this emotion, was giving me the energy to come out of this hole I had created for myself there, and with all these emotions of depression and sadness and being very sad and lonely. And the more I listened to their music, the more I felt the courage to come out of it. And it actually took everything that I had to get out of this situation. But the music was a absolutely special ingredient that I used to come out from this very deep and ugly phase of my life. And the beautiful thing that I am so thankful for the universe is that, that was back in 2014, 2015. I was living alone in Antigua, Guatemala, and I had come out from this depression that I had, and I was once walking in Antigua, and I met the lead singer of the group. Just like that. She was coming into a restaurant, and I was coming out, and I was just like, I cannot believe that she's here. And that was one of the most amazing things I had the chance to do in my life, because we started to talk about this, and the first thing that I wanted to tell her was how important her music was for me, and how of an impact the music had in order for me to be able to go out from this depression and being able to rise from this obscure emotions that I was feeling it. And that's when she told me that actually a lot of the music they made were from gospels. That changed my life in so many ways, because I didn't knew that were gospels, that the lyrics that they were, I'm sorry, but it's just like God was talking to me. My angels were talking to me through this music, because they would use the gospels and maybe change a couple of words to make it more reachable and accessible for the people who are not religious or who don't know what gospels are. But their music had no God to it, but instead of God, it was Mother Nature, for example. But it's the same thing. It's the same thing, because it's the universe. It's God, Goddess, Nature, Mother Nature. It's the same thing. So I remember that was such a revelation at that moment, because at that moment I knew that God was talking to me in that moment, and that I was able to come out of those very difficult situations because I was listening to my angels, listening to myself and my higher self and God, that they were able to take me out of there and given me a hand in the journey. So it was amazing. It was so beautiful. And that I had the opportunity to tell her thank you, and that she actually could explain this to me. It's one of the best memories that I carry inside of my heart. And I was like, oh my God, it cannot be. But yes, I didn't want to cry, but music makes my life so much colorful. And I feel that music is able to get ourselves so much in contact with our emotions, and so vulnerable, and to know that it's okay to be able to feel all this, to feel so much in so many ways, in so many emotions, and that it's actually good. So yes, I'm gonna leave this video here. I am going to be talking about this subject much more, because I am already on the path to become a priestess of sacred sound, and I am going to be working with sound in my life and with my clients. So sound is a very important part of my life, and I am so grateful that I can share this with you guys, and that I am going to be able to share this knowledge with other people too. Music. And I forgot about dancing here, because dancing is also mentioned, but that I'm going to talk on the extended version, because with the dancing part there is a lot more to say about what rituals are. This was amazing. Thank you for being here. Thank you for having listened to me. If you feel this strong connection to music as I do, to singing as I do, leave your comments down below, and I will be very glad to be able to read them. And next video we're going to talk about pilgrimage. That's a very interesting one. So wherever you are, I am sending you a lot of light and a lot of love. We will see each other on next video. Bye!